The horror genre has been around since the 18th century, beginning with Gothic horror, which consisted of entities such as vampires, werewolves, and ghosts. Through the 18th and 19th centuries, works such as Frankenstein by Mary Shelley or short stories written by Edgar Allan Poe created icons of horror that are still around to this day. During the 20th century, around the 1960s and 70s, subgenres such as slasher and splatter films like Halloween and Psycho were becoming popular. Found footage started to take off around 1980, with Hannibal Holocaust being widely considered the first of this breed of film. Between 1989 and 2003, found footage started to get more and more popular with the release of The Last Broadcast and The Blair Witch Project. Although Cannibal Holocaust was Italian, most of the early found footage movies were made here in the United States. Found footage uses an entirely different approach to horror by putting the emphasis on a first-person point of view, putting the audience in the shoes of the protagonist. Typical horror movies use a third-person omniscient format where the audience knows everything and tells the protagonist's best friend not to go into the room where they are inevitably murdered. Instead, found footage focuses on the fear of not knowing. We know as much as the person holding the camera, and when something goes bump in the next room, we are unsure what is there. The Australian production, The Tunnel, is one of the newer examples of found footage. Released in 2011, this film takes the audience beneath the streets of Sydney, where the government plans to recycle water located in the tunnels under the city. Natasha, who is a rookie journalist in Sydney, is hearing reports on homeless people who live in the tunnel going missing down there. She takes a 4-person crew down into the tunnel illegally, and surprisingly, only 2 of them return. This film is a great example of the found footage genre due to the fact that it keeps the audience in the dark throughout the whole movie. And, even at the end, the viewers still are unaware of what really is in the tunnel. What the film does show is very bad quality, except for the creature's eyes. Again, the quality is very bad, so the audience knows that there is something there, but are unaware of what it is, just like the protagonist. Having only the knowledge of the protagonist, and the addition of a few jump scares, the Australian film uses the same techniques as we do here in the US on productions like The Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity. In Spain, where their film industry is extremely different from the US and Australia, the found footage production of REC was released in 2007. Even though produced in Spain, a completely different culture than Australia, this film uses the same techniques as the Western cultures and Australia. REC follows Angela, a reporter, and her cameraman Pablo into an infected apartment. They are working the night shift at one of Barcelona's local fire departments when they receive a call about a woman trapped there. Once arrived, they realize all is not well, and also that they are just few of the humans left inside of the building who are not infected. They are trapped upstairs in a penthouse by the infected residents in the building. Although more is seen in the light, and the audience knows what is happening most of the time, it still follows the rules of found footage around the world because the audience knows what the protagonist knows. No more, no less. Unless they fall asleep because, let's face it, most found footage movies are complete crap. Footage is very similar looking to The Tunnel. Blurry and passing by the creatures very fast to give the audience quick scares when they catch a quick glimpse of the creatures. Another technique that is used by many different film industries is the lack of a soundtrack. There really is no need for a soundtrack in found footage. It just wouldn't really make a lot of sense, seeing as if one finds footage, there'd be no way they could layer in audio. Even the sounds made to make jump scares more effective, or maybe just someone screaming, or a sound that was made diegetically. In this scene, there is no soundtrack, as in like scary music or sudden bursts of sounds to increase the effect of jump scares. All that is heard is what can be picked up by the camera that is filming the event. Also, this technique is found in REC. Again, Australia and Spain, being very different in the film industry, are using the same techniques to film their found footage movies. One found footage film that does not follow this trend of not having a soundtrack is Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity puts atmospheric noise behind some of the footage they use in their movie. The problem with that is that it takes away the authenticity of the movie because it wouldn't really be found footage if someone took the time to edit and put a soundtrack behind it. Jump scares are a big part of found footage. They strike fear in the audience because, just like the protagonist, they have no idea that it's coming. There is really only one way to do a jump scare, by just having something jump out at the camera or audience. This is another reason why found footage is relatively similar throughout a wide variety of film industries. The tunnel uses a few jump scares, like turning to find the creature or the creature just popping into frame. These clips are a perfect example of jump scares. They're quick and jump out at an unexpected audience. These techniques are very similar in REC. Just like in the tunnel, these jump scares are unknown both to the audience and the protagonist. There is really one way to do a jump scare, and it is widely used throughout different film industries around the world. Whether it be by the tone the film sets, the lack of a soundtrack, or the usage of jump scares, the techniques used when filming found footage films are very similar. Although found footage is very unique to other types of horror, the found footage genre is similar no matter what country one is in. REC and The Tunnel prove that Spain and Australia, two very different film industries, use the same technique to pull off a found footage movie. Also, both REC and The Tunnel put the audience in the shoes of the protagonist, and unlike third-person omniscient films, in found footage the audience knows what the protagonist knows. No more, no less. REC and The Tunnel are perfect examples of how found footage from two different film cultures have the same objective of putting the audience in the shoes of the protagonist, while also using similar techniques.